Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Rhyme of the Times for the week ending the 26th of April 2025. The Pope appears at St. Peter's to assuage health fears, but sadly death is near, and then his legacy becomes clear amongst many tears. Zelensky and Trump have each other's ear, which brings some cheer. With the definition of man and woman now here, its consequences are not clear. The Online Safety Act steers towards fining companies of social media, but they may just sneer and have little fear at fines that are to them small beer. The week was dominated by the Pope, reflection bookended by 2 weekends of hope. Starting on Easter Sunday in St. Peter's Square, he appeared on the balcony in his wheelchair, with thousands of mainly Catholics gathered there. His recent health scares and ongoing medical care had followers round the world sharing their prayers, and many thoughts had been spared for his welfare, but just seeing him in Rome there, in the sun's glare, gave everyone reason not to despair. But from Sunday's hope that he was on the mend, Monday saw those high hopes quickly descend. The spiritual leader on whom many depend had come to a quick and devastating end. Francis, who had served the Lord with such ardour, had been returned to the house of the Father. Heart failure had quickly followed a stroke, went into a coma from which he never awoke. Jesus' resurrection, of which he had just spoke, doesn't apply to mere mortal human folk. And so the mourning and eulogizing began, emotion released like water through a dam, reflecting on the life of a remarkable man, through whose veins compassion and humility ran. He occupied the hallowed halls of the Vatican, but of pomp and privilege he wasn't a fan. A pope for the oppressed and the downtrodden. For him the marginalized were never forgotten. Sometimes unkindly called the woke pope, his liberal views put him under the microscope. He interpreted his faith and the scriptures in a way that put people before rules and strictures. His vision was clear, his morality a fixture. Humanity for him was always the big picture. Then on Saturday the focus swung back to St. Peter's, with the basilica crammed with world leaders, and spotted there were Trump and Zelensky in deep discussion, causing a media frenzy. What could they possibly have been speaking about? The great weather that Rome was enjoying, no doubt. Or perhaps the Pope's influence beyond the grave had made evil succumb to the good and brave. Trump's Truth Social post later in the day suggested he'd finally seen things that way. A light bulb moment lighting up a dim brain, that actually he should take the side of Ukraine. There's no disputing Trump's been rooting for Putin, but he wants him to stop his bombing and shooting. He also sees Ukraine as good only for looting. His peace prize is at stake, so war doesn't suit him. And if peace in Ukraine is what he's been seeking, Trump's authority has been increasingly weakened, as the Kremlin coward pursues his obsession of killing civilians with naked aggression. Like 2 weeks ago when he bombed Sumy, making the chances of peace look ever more gloomy. 34 killed, Zelensky became overcome and referred to the culprits as deranged scum. Decent people concurred and were left feeling numb as Donald Trump persisted in keeping mum. But now, maybe, finally, he will succumb and drag himself out from beneath Putin's thumb. The Wild West, asbestos, a cesspit or cesspool. Of late, some of the things the internet has been called. And now there's a sea change of negativity as kids see more bad stuff that they just can't unsee. We now yearn for past days of one TV per household with one on-off switch that the grown-ups controlled, and the guardrail of the 9 o'clock watershed so adult content came on when kids were in bed. But that was back then. We are where we are, and where we are now is we've come way too far. Australia's banned smartphones for under 16s. The effectiveness of this is yet to be seen. Here, the Online Safety Act has moved like a snail. And for many, it's unambitious and doomed to fail. A set of codes released by Ofcom on Thursday that all online platforms are supposed to obey mainly revolve around the use of algorithms and online age verification systems. The problem, though, concerns the sanctions that exist. Fines aren't fine if they're just a slap on the wrist. For the likes of TikTok, $1 billion fine will hardly trouble their bottom line. And tech firms are already lining up their excuse that bots now control how algorithms are used. Is this the Armageddon, the much feared coup when bots take control over what humans do? Last week's landmark Supreme Court decision on the official man and woman definition to women's rights groups was a common sense ruling, while trans activists asked, just who are you fooling? On the face of it, the outcome seems straightforward, but some consequences are a little bit awkward, like trans women are no longer allowed in men's loos, which could, of course, create some tricky issues. And all week, politicians in interviews were caught off guard and seemed quite bemused. And the whole topic has ignited an emotional fuse from celebratory to distraught, and everyone's confused. The judge last week urged people not to take sides, but this is a matter that always divides, irrespective of what any court decides.